What's up, everybody? I'm Tyler. This is The Table. Also, first, notice the new logo. Shout out to my pastors. They are amazing. They had this made for me, and it's stinking awesome.
That's beautiful.
So, shout out
Beautiful.
to my pastors for that.
Good
Introduce the
job.
new logo.
Good job.
Super cool. Also, which I was meant to tell you this earlier, I forgot. Don't worry, I will eventually introduce him, but my ADHD brain is already taking off. Eventually, the old
Hobo
thing I
with long
had,
hair.
the God is Good, with all the pictures, will go up on this wall, and then my bachelor's degree will go on that wall. So eventually, we'll get all that put up, but
Heck yeah.
still a work in progress right now. Anyways, I am here with Daniel Heck.
What the heck?
Yeah, so we definitely play with his last name. Daniel Heck is our drummer at the church. Here in these last few months, we've grown a lot closer, and I just kind of want to take a moment to brag on him. Daniel, your friendship, your brotherhood, having someone to look up to, in the way of just seeing sort of some of the things you've been through, seeing your passion for the Lord, seeing the depth that you have. It is encouraging to see. I would say produces passion inside of me, but also sharing some of the hard things that I've went through these past few months, and just having someone just to kind of lean on and trust, and just have a voice of influence in my life that's going to point me back to the Word, but ultimately encourage me, uplift me. Just some of the encouraging words you've given me when I just not necessarily felt like giving up, but just kind of been like, I'm tired, and just the words of encouragement you've given me just to keep pushing. I truly honor all that, but more than all of that, more than all the words, all of that, I appreciate you as a person. Just the way you carry yourself. You're always just, every time like I see you, like you've always got this smile. You're always like, you're a joy to be around, and your joy is infectious. Like, it's like you can tell you just have a genuine love for people, and you are like supercharged when you're around people.
Yeah.
And I have felt that. I'm like, when I'm around you, I'm like, I feel like I can be authentically me. And that's something you also do really well. You allow people to be authentically themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not like you have to conform to the way I think or anything. It's just like, dude, be you, and let's just have fun.
Heck yeah.
And it's a joy and an honor to know you. It is a joy to be around you. And so I thank you for the blessing you are to my life. And Lord, thank you for the blessing that is Daniel Heck.
Man, thank you for that. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Heck,
Also,
I'm glad that shows.
yeah. Also, not to mention, with the long hair and stuff. There was a season I had my long hair.
Yeah, we had a discussion about that too.
Yeah, we had a
were praying
discussion about
that. Yeah,
cutting our hair
we
and
almost
stuff.
got it.
And
you did.
Yeah.
And
And our conversation was sort of the catalyst that led me to
Yeah.
that. And I miss it, but I don't regret my decision.
nah,
But I do miss it. But I like my hair now. But
yeah, dude, that's good.
yeah. But yeah, it was cool. Like being in church, and kind of growing up around a different kind of culture,
Right.
where guys didn't really have long hair and all of that. And so coming to Fellowship Church and seeing a dude with long curly hair, I'm like, this is my guy.
Heck
Yes,
yes. Well,
I'm in the right place.
Yeah, and it's for a season because never in my whole life did I ever have hair past, under my ears. I just because I didn't like it. It froed up, because it's so curly, it just puffed up, and I never gave it time though. I never gave it time to do it. But then when COVID happened, we were at the house and we just kind of said, and my son too. I mean, Max already. We were kind of letting his hair grow out, and so then I was like, well, I'll cut my hair when he cuts his hair. And now we're going on close to 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. Right?
Wow.
2019.
Yeah, 6.
So going close to 6 years.
Almost
then.
6 years.
So
Wow.
dang. Yeah. So without a haircut, I've had one trim, dead ends and stuff. But
Yeah.
I need another one. But yeah, 5 years.
Wow.
Dedication.
Well, it looks good.
Thank you. Yeah, I washed it last night.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I don't miss. The hassle of taking care of long hair. Whoo, Lord.
Yeah, it's teaching me. It's a lesson for me. That's why it's a constant reminder and constant lesson that I'm having to learn every day of
Yeah, for sure.
do better. It's a
Yeah.
humble reminder.
Oh yeah.
Do better. You can
Yeah.
you can take care of yourself better.
Mm. Mm. Steward the things that the
Yeah.
Lord has given you. So,
Yeah,
and if you show that you can be trusted with little, He'll give you much.
that's it.
So,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
Anyways, that's not what our topic.
That's not
is
our
today.
topic today.
Yeah. So, I reached out to Daniel. Was like, "Hey, man, here's 3 topics," and he was like, "Dude, let's just cover all of them because they all kind of go in with each other." But I would say, at least for right now, the title of this is going to be "How to Sustain in Hard Seasons." I told Daniel, I was like, the timing could not be more impeccable because of all the stuff that I've kind of been through over the last few months, the last 2 years, honestly. I shared with you a little bit, was like, dude, the last 2 years, it's like I've been more confused than ever. Not confused in the sense of like not knowing the word of God and following it, but it's like, feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what direction to take.
Yeah.
I feel like there's 14 different options and I don't know which one's God, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
And then the stress and anxiety levels go through the roof, and one thing after another. And then along with all the hurdles and roadblocks and stuff. And so I told Daniel, I was like, this is timing right here.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's like, kind of just sharing a little bit of like experience and stuff, but also like, believing that the Lord can use our conversation to heal and guide and direct us as well. So kind of, give your thoughts on that, what this topic means to you.
Yeah. So, well, when you came to me with the topic, I was like, I had an idea, and it was, you asked me at first, you didn't tell me the topics you had.
Yeah.
You said, just let me know what you want to talk about. And I'm like, really? You want me to pick what we're going to talk about on your podcast? And I'm just like, I don't know. And then I talked you into just sending me some topics, and then I was like, and then I'll pick one of those. So I was like, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Well, it was exactly what if I was the podcast that I designed and wanted to do is called The Pit. And then homeboy texts me and says, how to sustain in the struggles of life, the pits of life. And, and how do we keep our focus on the Lord and on Jesus and be able to go through those seasons. And I'm like, yep, well, I guess this is the right time to do something like this and start speaking and talk about it, because it was a year ago whenever I had that idea of and it was from Paul Bradford giving a word to me, and he was saying it's time for you to take your step up to your responsibility in the body.
Wow.
And
strong words.
So I was like, okay, what's that look like? And it was kind of in that same, in that start of, desiring to do what I've had a pause on doing because of, again, what we'll get into today, because of this season of feeling of being in a pit and being kind of restrained from being able to do what dream I had.
Right.
But then being kind of, really zealous about a dream, but then being thrown in the pit, kind of. And
wow.
So, so that's kind of, where I feel it being led to is this, the type of pit that I can personally share on is that there's different types of areas in our life where we feel, struggles and seasons where they're hard.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
we have to identify which one we're in, and how because you're going to respond differently to those seasons.
Absolutely.
Because you can't do the same approach to every single circumstance.
Right. Yeah.
It's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
You got to
well,
do
it's
different
because
things.
there's different kinds of I'd say different kinds of pits.
Yeah.
It's like there are different causes for pits.
Yes.
You know, there are some that pits are caused by just sort of things that happen in your life. You know, nothing you can control. It's just, you know, because of sin and the fallen world. It's like that's just how, you know, nothing you could have done. Then there are pits that happen because of an action someone did to you, and you're sort of the victim. Not necessarily victim as in like, it's like something happened to you caused by someone else.
Yeah.
So I
maliciously, intentionally caused to bring you harm. Yeah.
Exactly. And like you had said, kind of like the Joseph scenario.
Yeah.
And then, and this is kind of a harder one. I think it's even hard to identify sometimes, or I think it's hard to identify because pride gets in the way. But then there are even pits that we cause ourselves.
Yeah.
There are pits that we dig for ourselves.
Right.
And then jump into.
If we literally jump in there because we dug it, I'm gonna go make a bed down there and hang out and then tell everybody, you know, I'm crying down here, I'm hurting, you know.
Exactly.
Just want a like, pit party, you know.
Word. And it's like, because I've heard all my life, it's one of those, you made your bed, lay in it. So like you said, you know, you dig the hole, but it's like, you know, and I'm reminded of the scripture, it's like you could even make your bed in hell and he's still there.
He's still there.
So it is a, you know, there are consequences for your actions. There are cause and effect.
Yeah.
But we can take rest in the fact that, and I think this is a good direction to go to start off, is that whichever pit you're in, the Lord hasn't abandoned you.
Yes, that's right.
It's like you can make your bed in hell. It's like, so this isn't like, you know, something happened to you and all this kind of stuff, and I'm brokenhearted. It says God does draw close to the brokenhearted, so be comforted in that.
Yeah.
But it's also like, you can be the cause of why you're in the pit, and he's still with you.
Yeah.
He still hasn't left you. He still hasn't abandoned you. And I think that's one of the things that like we can find hope in, is knowing that whether we caused it, whether someone else caused it, whether just by happenstance it happened, and we find ourselves in a pit.
Yeah.
It's first acknowledging, God, you're right here. You haven't left me. You haven't abandoned me, even though sometimes it can feel like it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And with you saying that, it's the pits of, you know, we can look at the pits in the major figures in the Bible that we have as an example.
Absolutely.
Which you know, kind of the different pits. You know, of course we got Joseph, we got Daniel in the lion's den. You know, thrown into a pit. We got Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thrown into a, you know, not necessarily a pit, but it was a fiery furnace, a fire pit. You know,
fire pit.
So those are kind of like the different things of you know, different types of pits. You know, almost, you know, which all of them were because of one was directly being in defiance against the tyranny, you know, Daniel praying and getting punished for praying against a decree that was deceptively placed upon him, and he's like, well, it doesn't matter, I'm still gonna continue to pray.
Yeah.
And because of his obedience to continue to pray to the Lord, then he was thrown to the lion's den and he was protected. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego told to worship and bow your knee to, and they said, we will not. And because of that, they thrown into the fire, yet protected.
Yeah.
Now, those two are kind of the same. Now, Joseph was, you know, it was he shared a dream that God given him, but it was a dream that made the brothers, you know, jealous.
Yeah.
You know, it was because, why are you special? Why do you think you're going to do? Why would you say that dream to us? Why would you tell us that dream? And then they said, okay, now we're going to call it. It's always about, it is kind of still about always wanting, somebody's trying to put you into the pit. You know, the enemy wants you in the pit as well.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the individuals, but it is the enemy. The enemy is wanting to convince people to also throw you into the pit. And because he wants you in the pit, for you to destroy yourself in that pit, you know, because sometimes the Lord, he'll which maybe he doesn't put us in the pit, but he will use that pit to preserve and to remove what needs to be removed and purify, you know, you in that. Because if you weren't in that pit and you were left to your own, you know, running with this dream, zealous after what was told to you, you could end up not allowing it to mature and not learning the necessary
what it takes to steward the dream.
Yeah,
there takes a
not
lot of
not getting the right attributes, not being equipped to be able to maintain and steward that dream vision that was given to you.
It's so cool. You like just said legit all of my thoughts, because I was thinking about like purification while in the pit and all that. You just about said it all. But it's like it's in those pit seasons that the Lord purifies us.
Yes.
And and that's to do the work of the ministry. It's like to present something that's holy and righteous before him, something that he can consume and move through. But it only happens when we lay ourselves on the altar. And I believe oftentimes that, and I've experienced this here more recently, is that here in this last 2 years being in the pit, it's like the Lord has dug some stuff out that has hurt. And it has hurt bad, and it's still going through that process, but it's like it's necessary. And it's like, and the other thing you had said, and I remember, I forgot who I told this to. I think it was Josh.
Okay.
And I was talking to Josh about it, and he was kind of like talking a little bit about how things happen, and and he was trying to kind of find the words, and you said it perfectly. It's like the Lord doesn't put us in the pit. The Lord uses the pit. It's like it is not God's design to put you in the pit.
Right.
But it does say in Scripture that he turns things around for the good of those who love him. Romans 8:28. Yes. Romans 8:28. And that he turns things for the good of those who love him. And it's like, and that is what you sort of cling to. It's like, okay, Lord, I know that you want to use this to purify me. I know you want to use this to equip me. So I'm not going to, how do I say this? I'm not going to go through this season haphazardly, and I'm not going to go through this season with a salty attitude and just, be kind of just ticked off. And it's like, because then you're going to miss all of the things the Lord wants to do in that process. And it's those experiences that kind of shape us as believers. And it gives us our testimony. It's like, without the testimony of being in the pit, without Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saying, like, and that's the story we cling to as believers. It's like, even in the fire, even when my enemies have thrown me in the fire, I have a fourth man in the fire. And there have been many songs that have been written out of that story and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, and they chose, and it's what they did in that season that made the difference.
Right.
And so we'll kind of like, this kind of shifting directions, but it's like, it's what you do in those seasons that make the difference.
That's right.
Are you going to walk through those seasons with a horrible attitude and just wanting pity and wanting, all this kind of stuff and just wanting people to pat your back? Or are you going to allow the Lord to do a good work in you? Because that's what he wants to do.
Because with it is, like you said, how you handle the situation, what you do in the pit is what's going to determine you getting out or you staying in.
Word.
Because you have the power to come out or you have the power to stay in. Just like the man at the, sitting there by the pool of Siloam that said, take your bed and walk. Well, no one's here to pick me up and no, walk.
You have the ability.
You have the ability. Get up and walk.
That's a good word.
And he picked up the bed and walked and that was it. So it goes into this the power to break out, to come forth, and leave these seasons of the pit is, the word, the Hebrew word for breaker, to break out is translated at times as Perez, or it's Peratz, but it's Pei Resh Zadi. And so I like the Paleo Hebrew, which is like the Egyptian hieroglyphics, but it's
so Daniel studies Hebrew a lot, and it's really cool. I love having these conversations with him because I'm like, I don't hardly know nothing with Hebrew, so learning all this is super, super cool.
And it's a thing of, no, I'm not a scholar, a registered, documented scholar on it, nothing, but I just have a passion for it, and I love it, and I desire to, I want it to say what it's supposed to say. I want it to say what it's saying. And there is the, different opinions on it, but it doesn't matter. It's a tool to go deeper into study. And so it's not a magic trick to get a secret code, to get secret knowledge. No, it's a tool to reveal and deepen the understanding
Yeah,
of
things like
scripture, of a word, of a
Yeah.
picture, because it's a picture that not only describes that one use of the word,
Right.
because everything ties into it, because every other word that has that connection to that letter always they all
it
connect.
brings meaning.
It
and-
brings a bigger meaning into it all.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
so with this word, you have pay, resh, zadi, and pay is it means to carry something. It's like these arms that's stretched out. It's kind of in the shape of a U. But
Okay.
it's kind of a the back half of a D, but it's
Okay, I
it's
got
kind
you.
or a ship, about the bow of a ship. So if you think of a ship, you
I
do
got you.
a bow
Yeah,
of a
yeah,
ship,
yeah.
and if you were cut it in half, that's the shape of the Paleo Hebrew pay. Well, it's to the meaning of it is to speak as well. Like literal meaning is like the mouth. It's to but what does
Okay.
your mouth do?
It
Carries, it speaks, but it carries something to somewhere. So like when you're eating, it's or like a squirrel. A squirrel puts nuts in his mouth to carry it to where it's going to
Yeah,
put
so
in
it's
its
almost
tree
like
for
a
it's a vest.
mediator to tie one from another.
Yeah, and it's kind of its purpose is to take to change it from one thing to another.
Okay.
So
It's the way like your mouth breaks down
it breaks
food
it down,
into enzymes,
and so it
and-
carries it to be able to digest it into
Right,
your body.
okay.
So
following.
it's like a ship carrying goods. It's exporting one thing, you put it in there, it carries something. It
Okay.
gives the ability to transport and carry something. So that's
Okay.
kind of the picture of pay. It's to speak it though, because your words carry a meaning. It's carrying a meaning behind that word. So it's like
Right.
it carries words in our mouth, and when we release it, it's sending it out as as something to be received. So
Right.
but it also we can also receive the word in a sense through reading the word.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so it goes from there. From it's a form of carrying, of speaking, and then resh is this. The idea is this: the chief, the head. The head man, the prince. Resh is first. In a literal sense, it's the first. It's the head. It's the chief. So president. Lack
Yeah.
of better terms.
Yeah, something for our humanistic minds to understand.
So the president would be the chief officer, ranking officer of America. He's the head. He's
Right.
the big boss. So in another term we look at, it's also like the Messiah.
Okay.
He's the exalted man. He is the highest ranking man there ever was. So he is
Yeah.
the highest. He's the chief. He's the exalted man. And so the picture is kind of just like a stick figure, backwards P that looks like a stick figure head. Like you would draw a stick figure, and it's like a head of a man.
Yeah.
So we have arms, and then we have this man. So we got a little stick figure man with arms doing this. Is the picture that I draw with it.
Okay.
And so you have the right, and it's also like the righteous is the head, not the tail. So the righteous is head. So it's like a righteous man. So
Okay.
the resh is kind of a symbol of a righteous man. One that is higher than the others, not in the sense of boasting of anything, but it's an exalted person. It's a person of position.
Right, exactly.
And so you have pay, resh, and then zadi. Zadi is this, it looks like a banner, a flag. So you have, it's also
Okay.
literally called a fish hook. That's what it's kind of used. But what's the intention of a fish hook is to catch and pull out. It's catch and pull up. It's to catch, get hooked. And so this idea also goes into the a sprout, like a dead thing sprouting with life. So it's like Aaron's rod that budded. It's this sign of something that was dead coming to life. So resurrection,
Wow.
power, is what Zadi is representative in this
Wow.
picture, and in what the idea is to bring something out
Of
from death into life.
Yeah.
So it's this picture of resurrection as well. And so
wow.
what breaker, because you have in Micah too, where this word is kind of used for the prophetic declaration of, he says, the breaker's gone forth, he's gone before you, and you will follow after him. He's made the way, bringing you out. So in Micah, it's the prophetic thing of the Messiah going before you, breaking down the walls, making a path, and he's at the head of you, and you're going to follow after, and you're going to follow that banner. So you have this person, this righteous man holding
Wow.
this flag, going through in like an army, you're gonna follow that banner, because that's the banner of of salvation.
Yeah.
It's the again, in all the scriptures where it says, Yahweh's my banner of
Yeah.
salvation. He's the banner. It's the standard. That's also where it's translated as standard. Is it's this, not Perez, but it's Nisi. It's Nun Samic. That is the banner standard. But
Okay.
that is, again, it's a serpent on the pole picture as well. That's a whole nother, again, I can go into all
Yeah.
these different words that ties into they all tie together. What's
Right.
that banner? Because you have you have a zoomed out view of a man holding a flag, but there's deeper angles and different positions that you look at this word,
Okay.
and you see different stories.
Right.
You see the serpent on a pole. And the thing about the serpent on the pole is that it's this Nun Samic is this banner. Again, it's like a sail structure is how it is, and then you have this Nun, which is like it's the sprout, but it's also like it's like a snake. It's something. It has the shape of a snake, but it's something that's like a lightning bolt, like something that's sprouting. It's like a sprout out of the ground. It broke forth,
Okay.
and so like the snake that was placed on there, well, the snake didn't do anything. Like it didn't heal the people, the Israelites, because that's what he told Moses. Place a serpent on the pole, but
Yeah.
he actually didn't tell him a serpent. He told him a seraph, which that's a whole another conversation. Two different words there that he used.
Wow.
So he told him to put a seraph on a pole, but he on a banner, and then he put a serpent on a pole. Two different words, four different words actually. Anyway, so anyway,
I've got to go do some studying.
So, yeah,
now I want to know what that is.
so and there's in the so in the, just to tie into that, the idea was that the banner, the serpent on the pole isn't what healed them, but it's what it represented. So the thing of it, the pole itself didn't do anything. Them physically
Right.
looking at it wasn't the thing, but it's what it did to them. It pricked their heart to remember to do the commandments, because they were the reason why all these fiery serpents started in, because they were disobedient. And so these fiery serpents, which is, that you can, it's just their venom, kind of the bites were fiery, not necessarily they were flaming serpents per
Yeah,
se,
but
the picture there is the fiery serpents. So anyway, it was that once he raised, they looked at it, it pricked their hearts and said, it was, the idea is that he impaled the snake, crushed the snake. And so when the snake was crushed, it's the defeat of sin. So do the commandments. Well,
Yeah.
in a in a Second Temple book, it's the Apocrypha book, Wisdom of Solomon. It's it references that and says it wasn't that's not the thing that healed him. It was when they looked at it, it pricked their heart and caused them to turn back and do what was right.
wow.
Well, so when in the New Testament, when it says, the Son of Man must be lifted, the same way that the snake was lifted, so must the Son of Man be lifted. Well, when you reference it, why is that connection? Well, the connection is because what did the snake on the pole represent? It represented that it was the healing, but the thing itself didn't, it's not just for those that looked at it then. It's anybody that
Okay.
looks back to it and remembers what it stood for, what it represented.
Okay.
Not the literal, it's not that only the ones that were there in person got
Yeah.
the healing.
Right.
It's
Okay.
anyone that remembered, that can look at the cross. That's like why it's such a symbol. Now we look at the cross and we remember
Yeah.
what it stands for. So then there's healing in that remembrance, because it pricks our heart to do
Exactly
what we're supposed to do.
And so in the same way that with this, serpent on a pole, snake on
Yeah.
a pole, whatever, you look back to it, remember it. It's the
Yeah.
same way that us as believers, even though we haven't seen the cross, we look back.
we look back to
at the
the
cross
picture.
and
We have this
the
image.
the concept to it, and
it
we
pricks
still
us.
have the same.
We have the ability, the opportunity to respond in the right way, in that same
Okay.
way too, because that's what it's supposed to do. It's not the image itself, because what they did in Chronicles, they started worshiping that thing. They used it as an idol because it healed them, but they had the wrong perspective, because they still had perspectives of idols and things like that. They started worshiping the very thing rather than what
Right.
it represented, rather than the one who it was pointing to, because it's always been, it's never supposed to be
Yeah.
the actual, like images or idols. It was what it represented,
Right.
not
in the
that
same way that
not in that physical point there. You're not doing that. It's what it points you to. And so in the same way,
Yeah.
don't worship the cross itself and as an idol,
Yeah,
as an
the cross
image.
as a object.
Yeah, and don't
but
set,
what it stands for.
but what it stands for,
It's
what
the
it
same way,
represents,
like
who it
even,
is.
Yeah, in the same way, even like, and this is one of the things I've noticed a lot, especially in like my generation that are super like emotional and stuff. Is like we worship,
Yes.
and not the one we're.
Not the one.
Not the one we're worshiping.
Not the one it's about. But
Yeah,
we wanna
it's like
worship
we
the
worship
thing,
the thing, we
object.
worship the feeling, we
Yeah.
worship the kind of high that it gives us emotionally, because it does that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it as long as that's not what we're worshiping.
Right.
But in the same way, it's like you're not supposed to give your attention and affection and worship to worship.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be giving it to a man.
That's right.
And so that's a cool tie-in.
Yeah, and
Wow,
so
okay.
so with that, that's actually, again, it's a whole nother. That's what started me going down the paleo study. Is there was this video of a guy that does this study. Now he does, there's of course differences in opinions on different different
Right,
outlooks,
yeah, and
but as a core, the nuts and bolts of the process of learning these is there, and it's very and
Absolutely.
and
It's
there.
like threshing wheat. You
That's
keep,
it.
keep what's good and toss what's bad.
That's right. And so the that's what started me looking at other things and saying, well, it's a picture, and I see the seraphim, it said, because it was supposed to be a thing of to remind you to remember, if it was supposed to be a set apart image thing, but not necessarily a physical thing. If you would have put a seraph on a banner, so like a seraphim, well, what's a seraphim? It's 6 wings with eyes all about, right? You got the 4 faces, and then you got 6 wings, so seraphim. Well, a seraph is a burning one is what it's defined as, but that's the seraphim plural. No. Well,
okay.
When you place that on a flag, because it's a banner, it's a flag. What else has 6 wings, 6 branches, and 4 faces? In depth in the middle, a menorah. So the seraphim.
I was like, you looked at me like I knew what that was.
I know. I was like, I'm gonna get maybe got. I thought maybe got. So the menorah is the burning thing that's in the temple. It's the representation. It's got these 6 branches, and it's got flames. Well, that's the eyes all about. It's these burning ones, and in the middle, there's actually, so each branch there's 22 bowls actually total too. So there's 3 cups on each branch, but in the middle there's 4. And so you have this picture of the seraphim, which I think they represent is the menorah, which the menorah represents a lot of different things, but because they have the 6 wings, coming up, and it has the 4 faces in the middle, so the 4 bowls in there, but it's also the 4 joints. So you have the 3 branches in the middle, and then you have that top bowl, because each one joins. You have 3 where the 6 join, and then you have that top bowl, kind of.
Okay.
Anyway, that's like I said, that's a whole nother subject where it goes down. But if he would have just done that, they wouldn't have started worshiping a banner. But I think where Moses may have flawed in was making that bronze brazen serpent, because what they started doing was they started worshiping the serpent on a pole, not the creator. But if he would have hearkened to that initial, and again, this is a what's the word, this is me speculating,
Speculating, kind of hypothetical
the hypothetical
hindsight.
thing of if that Moses didn't listen correctly, which we have evidence that he did that a couple times. He did not listen.
Absolutely. And the thing about scripture is also, like, I think sometimes we can if we kind of dig deep into it, it's like we see times where they miss it.
Yeah.
And it, I think it can kind of be, okay, I have to be very careful when I say this. It can kind of be liberating for someone, at least like me, that is so, I have to get everything right.
Right.
And it's like, seeing stuff like that, it kind of just, relax. You're not going to get everything right. But guess what? God still used Moses, even though he didn't get everything right. God still used David, even though he didn't get everything right. God uses people despite the imperfection.
Yeah, because it's about the heart, just like with David. His heart.
Yeah, and he's known as a man after God's own heart. But people, it's like, you look back and you see all the bad decisions he made, but it's like, but there's still redemption.
That's right.
There's and that's the whole story of the gospel.
And it shows,
and it doesn't stop at salvation.
No, and it shows just how much grace is there. You know, that, you know, the idea of grace is chen. It's Hebrew word chen. It's het nun. Well, het is a fence. Nun is a sprout, little sprout. In these seasons of all these people, they were still in grace. You know, the reason why he still allowed do it, because they were still growing. It's this, he had them in a greenhouse of protection, of learning and teaching and establish. And again, it's kind of, they were in a pit.
Yeah, I was about to say
they were in
that's
a pit
often of what a pit is.
Of protection until you mature.
Right.
Until you can get matured, and then you can be transplanted and brought up out of the pit and established in the plant into the pasture with a larger space. Now as a mature plant into mercy, because the picture of mercy now is the same thing, except you have it's chesed, which now instead of het nun with a sprout in a fence, now you have a fence with a gate. So if you have a gate, you're in a much larger pasture, because dalit. So chesed, you have the fence, and you have a mature samek, which is a mature fruit-bearing tree, and a gate. So you've been transplanted from grace. Now you're mature. You've been placed in mercy, and now you're in a much larger place. So the picture of that is that I've been thinking of, and I'm glad it transitioned perfectly into where we're going. Is that in Joseph, the King of Dreams animation movie?
Yeah.
He was thrown in the pit, and he was thrown after he was sold and everything. He got placed into the prison, and in that prison, he was with the baker, and he's with, you know.
This is what I was thinking. I'm glad you went here.
He's with the baker, and he's with the what is it? The cupbearer.
Yeah.
And so they talk about there are different things in there, but in that movie, the cupbearer is tending to this little sprout that's growing in the crack of this prison, this pit. Now, where the movie goes is showing that he's taking care of it. And I believe I wish I just would have watched the whole thing, but I tried to find the clip. I couldn't do it. But I believe one point after the cupbearer and the baker leave, after the dreams get told, Joseph like gets mad and like destroys it, right? I can't remember if he does something to harm it, and
I
then
think he does. I don't know if he destroyed it, but I know he did something.
He did something that almost like uprooted it and caused it to not have any life.
Right.
But then after, catching his thoughts and composing himself, he went back there and started tending to it. And as the movie goes, Pharaoh comes back after. We're talking probably at least two years, if I remember correctly. There's at least 2 years after that. And now this sprout is this bush that has, life in it and all this, and he's watering it, and he's got this bricks around it and this picture. Well, that picture of that sprout is, it's grace. It's grace and mercy. And in the pit, whether you tend to it and nurture it and allow this seed of faith. So that seed was faith, hope. His dreams that he received back before he was sold by his brothers. He had a dream that God gave him, that he was going to be, he was going to be king, essentially. He was going to be a ruler over his brothers and over his father and mother even.
Right.
That dream was given to him. And then immediately thrown into a pit. Mm-hmm. So this is that seed that was planted in him.
Yeah.
He could abandon that dream, that dream, and say, well, obviously it was wrong. Obviously I didn't hear right. Obviously I didn't interpret this dream right. God didn't tell me the right. That wasn't from God. That was, my own thoughts. I came up with this idea.
And I'm going to interject just for a sec, because that even goes with the parable that Jesus mentioned. I forget exactly where it's at, but it's like, seeds that are sown on different soil types, and some that are rocky and some that are thorny that choke it out and stuff. And it's like, that's the importance of tilling the ground of our heart and allowing the seed to grow. It's because those thoughts and those, attacks come in to try to choke it out and to try to prevent it from growing.
Yep.
And I think oftentimes doubt and that kind of thing can be the very thing that stunts, hinders, and kills dreams in our life.
Right.
And I think there are many things that the Lord has for us that we've yet to live into because doubt has choked it out, and things have come into our life that have squeezed the life out of us to where, and allowing those thoughts to linger is allowing a thorn bush to grow.
Yep.
Allowing those thoughts to linger is not removing the rocks. And therefore now your seed is on bad soil.
Bad soil, and it won't take fruit.
Exactly.
It won't be strong. It won't thrive into a mature fruit producing, tree.
Yeah.
Bush. It's not going to produce any good fruit. It's going to have it probably won't last. The birds there are going to uproot it. It has no strength. The wind's going to sit there and just blow it off the rocks.
Absolutely.
It's going to be choked out.
And it's those seasons that are so important because it's like there's the song I'm thinking of. I forgot what it's called. I don't even know the artist, but the line that stuck with me is that there's water in the wilderness. And it's like, the water in the wilderness is the living water.
Yeah.
We know that it's even in those wilderness seasons, even in those pits, that the Lord is still with us, and he's there to water the seed.
Yep.
He is the living water to water that seed, but then it's our job to tend the ground, tend the soil.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's my job to pull all these weeds up.
Yeah.
It's my job to remove all of these rocks. It's my job to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, so that these seeds, when water is poured on it, it can grow. The thing is, it's that oftentimes these seeds grow. The first growth of a seed doesn't start above ground; it starts underground because the root system starts first.
Yep.
And I think oftentimes it's those, it's in those seasons of being in the pit where it's like you don't see a harvest yet.
Yep.
You don't even see a sprout yet.
Yep.
And it's like, but know that there's growth under the surface. Know that there's something happening under the surface that people don't see.
Yep.
Don't be discouraged by it. It's in those seasons of being in the pit that those roots
can take place and be able to.
So that, because without a root system, you can't grow upwards.
That's right.
You can't be exposed to above ground things, being exposed to light and to stages.
That's right.
It's like you need roots first.
Yeah. You have to have obscurity. You have to have a place of a womb, essentially, to grow.
Yeah.
And that's a picture of faith as well.
Absolutely.
The word picture is so it's amen. So it's emunah is the word for faith, but it's amen. So it's aleph mem nun. Well, aleph is strength. It's the initial plan, the word that was given. It's this thing that was spoken. It's strength. That was said, placed inside mem, which is waters, but it's also this idea of a womb, encapsulating. It's a place of confinement, and then you have noon. It's a sprout that's busting out of it.
Yeah,
and so in emunah adds a vav, which is the thing that binds and attaches, that connects us to something. That's the root.
Wow.
So faith is taking that seed and allowing it to take root, and that way it grows up. So faith is that seed that's in that pit of Joseph, in that picture. Faith is that seed, because literally the word picture for it is a seed that's sprouting forth. And once faith is taken, that's the thing that helps you get through. Well, what is that? How do you tend to it? How do you water it? What's the watering process? It's bring it back into, while he's in that prison, he still has to remember that promise, that dream, and know that he's not going to be abandoned in this prison. Because at his point, he was talking, Pharaoh, he told the baker, tell Pharaoh to remember that I'm about my dreams, about me interpreting dreams. Just tell him to remember me. Well, 2 years go by, he could have lost faith, but at that point, he started tending to that seed of faith. He's going to remember me. He's going to remember me. He's going to pull through. I'm going to get through. And not just for Pharaoh to remember him, but that the Lord would remember him.
Yeah.
And so he keeps watering and putting that seed of faith. And part of that the watering is, we look at, again, it goes to this breaker, is equipping, carrying, whether it's just this word of worship, these words of remembering what he said is speaking into that seed and watering it with the living water of the Lord. I mean, it's reminding ourselves of the promises that he's given us through his word, but you got to do it daily. And the watering there is allowing it to grow. And then that's what's sustaining you going through there is constantly remembering. And so 2 years later, the tree's matured now because he's constantly strengthening himself in the remembering that he's going to keep his covenant. He's going to keep his covenant. He told me he's going to do this. He's going to bring me up. He's going to pull me through. And we have to always remember that even though we're in this prison and it feels like we're stuck there, locked there, we've been forgotten, but he remembers us, and it goes into that word Zakar, and Zayin Kafresh. He's inscribed us in the palm of his hand.
Yeah.
He said, I will not forget my covenant. Just remember. And it's not necessarily even that you have to physically do everything right. It's that it's in your heart to remember to do.
Yeah.
And you're in that grace of learning. You have a field of your heart's of this pasture, this field, this fenced off area where seeds are being sown of all different types of seeds.
Yeah.
You have to tend to that garden. You have these rows and rows and rows. Well, sometimes somebody can come in and sow seeds of tares.
Yeah.
Things
so
that
seed of doubt. So
seeds of that aren't supposed to be there. You didn't plant that. Other people put that there.
Exactly.
You didn't plant that. But if you tend to it and you water that, it's going to grow.
Exactly.
But
and that's
there's
what
times
entertaining it looks like.
You can't remove it though, because sometimes it looks just like the real fruit in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
That's why it says the wheat and the tares, the parable of the wheat and the tares. It says you can't remove, let them grow up, because if you try to remove the tares in the stages of growth, you may damage the wheat. You may destroy the wheat.
You could remove the fruit.
The fruit
that's
going to happen because you can't tell the fruit. There's no fruit on it yet. It's still
Right.
growing. And the tare
wow.
mimics, and it looks good. It feels the same. It has the same properties, and it feels like, oh yeah, it's this, but it's your own, it's your own ideas, and it may feel the void. It fills that void for a season, but there's nothing to sustain it. And so the wheat is the word, the word of God. It's the bread. Well, what's bread made of? Wheat. So, we not live by bread alone, but every word that comes, from the mouth of God. So that's those seeds is what's being sown. We have to wait a season of growth to happen so that we can point out the tares and be able to remove what needs to and leave what needs to.
And that's good because there's, and I think of the, I forgot where it's at in the Old Testament, but it says there's a time for this, a time for that, time to mourn, a time to die, a time, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And, and like, it just reminds me, like, there's a season for everything. And I believe, like, truly believe that there are things that, that we struggle with that the Lord doesn't hit on immediately.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that if the Lord were to reveal all of our sin all at once, it would crush us.
Oh yeah, it's too much. That's why he says too, when you take the land, there's giants there, but little by little, lest you get consumed.
Yeah.
By the beast.
Exactly.
Because all the rotten flesh, all the things you're killing, if he's killed off all these rotten pieces, these rotten things, you're going to get consumed by the wild animals, the birds of the air.
And it's a lot easier to kill one giant at a time than kill 5 at a time.
Yes, sir.
I've been watching The Arrow a lot recently.
Okay.
And
yeah,
so
it's been a long time since I watched that.
Kind of have this, like my brain's kind of wired to like, combat and stuff, but it's like it's a lot easier to combat and fight one giant and then recover.
Yeah.
And heal.
Yep.
Like if you notice in like superhero TV shows, they don't go fight all big bads of all 8 seasons all at once.
No.
Like, Oliver Queen, he didn't go fight Ricardo Diaz and Damien Dark and all these people all at once.
No.
It was one at a time. And in those processes, he grew.
Yep.
He healed.
Yep.
There were things that were uncovered
Yep.
that he didn't know existed until a testing came.
Yep.
Fighting one of those giants, and he was like, "Oh, I have an issue with the way that I lead. I have an issue with the way."
Yeah.
Dude, I feel the
That's
presence
it.
of God.
So,
I'm
dude,
schooled the Lord's
100%. I feel
using
it.
this.
So with that, he takes us. You have to be, and you said the word lead, and so and I guess I'll get real with myself. The season has been a season that there's another person in the Bible, Jonah. He placed himself in that pit.
Yeah.
Running from the word that the Lord wants you to share, wants you to give. Running from the anointing, the call that he's placed on your life.
Right.
And he said, I don't want to do it. I ain't doing that. I don't want to do that. Why are you going to do that? They don't deserve that. And not that I ever had that thought, but this this idea of when you place yourself in this pit.
Yeah.
He was running away from the will of God because he didn't understand the process that the Lord established to bring redemption to anybody. Mm-hmm. These were not, quote unquote, the lost sheep of Israel. These were Nineveh. These people, they're not in our club. They're not our people.
Yeah.
Why am I going to go to Nineveh and tell them forgiveness is here for you? Repent. For in 40 days time, there's going to be judgment. They heard that, they repented, and there was forgiveness and restoration in that land. That wasn't people of covenant. Mm-hmm. They weren't in the covenant.
Yeah.
But when they heard the gospel, even then, because Abraham had a gospel too, there's still the same structure of the gospel has always been there. Repent, turn to me, forgiveness.
Right.
Come into the house. You don't start removing all the actions that you have right away. Mm-hmm. There's just a few things that have to happen first. And it's just like in the New Testament with the new converts, when they have the council with James and all that, they go to the Sanhedrin and ask, well, what are we going to do about these new converts? Nothing except stop sacrificing the idols, stop eating things with blood. There's 4 things. Which those
crap. I know what you're talking about now.
It's stop eating, stop eating things with blood, stop eating meat sacrificed to idols, stop there's 2 other things.
Oh crap.
But those
I know what you're talking about.
Those 4 things are the first 4 things in Leviticus before coming to the tabernacle that was addressed.
Yeah.
Like these are the first 4 things that will not allow you to enter into the sanctuary in the wilderness.
Yeah.
That's all he gave them. He didn't sit there and say, because then he said, for the rest of the stuff you'll learn every Sabbath because Moses read every Sabbath. You'll learn the rest later. But these 4 things let you enter in essentially.
Wow.
So it's all about your worship, okay, just stop the major, like who you're worshiping. You're no longer worshiping idols. You're no longer doing this. Worship me. You'll figure out how to walk correctly. You may say bad words. You may not walk it perfectly. I'll let you in the house now, though. Just stop worshiping those idols. Exactly. You can come in the house.
Yeah, and see, here's the thing about it. It's like, and I think this can kind of be the blueprint for discipleship and leading people to Christ. It's like, it would be foolish of me to ask someone who doesn't believe in God to keep his commandments.
Yep.
Because the value system is not the same.
No.
It's right. like holding you accountable and then holding them accountable. Holding you accountable is going to work.
Yeah.
Because you have a value system for the things of God.
Yeah.
This person doesn't. So why would they even care?
Yeah.
And I think too often, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but we too often focus on sin and not salvation.
Yes,
we're focused on the sin of the world and not the salvation of the world. And it's like, to get to salvation, it's like you were saying, no God before me, no idols.
Yeah.
Which means, first and foremost, like all of the other sins, we'll take care of them as they come. But first, you
need to know who I am.
Yeah, know who I am. Confess me as Lord and Savior.
Yep.
That you are the only true God, the only one I follow after, the only one my heart desires. And then from there, now that he dwells within you, he then changes you from the inside out.
Yep.
But to go up to someone and say, hey, stop doing XYZ, stop cussing, stop living promiscuous.
Yeah.
It's like they don't value the same thing. It doesn't make sense to them.
That's right.
So holding people accountable for sin is for believers, not non-believers.
Yep.
Non-believers, your focus should be salvation. Believers is then holding them accountable to righteousness.
That's right. Yep.
And so, yeah, that's one of the things that
Heck
kind
yeah.
of clicked when you were saying
And
that.
look at it as that they everyone's got a field. Everyone's got their fields. Well, they have a large plantation of lots of bad fruit
Yeah,
and very little good things mixed in there. But again, if it's growing, there takes time. You just get the things, because some things mature faster than the others.
right.
So
Exactly.
the things that have that's fruit right off the bat. It's like bamboo. You plant it, it grows in 3 days. Now what fruit you're getting from bamboo? I mean,
I don't know.
maybe it's like sugarcane. Maybe you say sugarcane. You make sugar.
Yeah. We know what
But
we're saying.
Markham, where you at? Markham Gardens.
Yeah, legit.
I need to know something that grows really quick and bears fruit. Strawberries, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, there's things that mature faster than others. Things that will produce a fruit very quickly. Now, those things that everybody has in their lives, that's all they've sown in their lives. That's all they tended to. All the different quote unquote sins, all the bad things that they're doing.
Right.
You can't just uproot it, because there's other things sown around it that you'll destroy. That's
Exactly.
good, and they're not at the point where you can just plow the whole thing and start. They can't die yet, because if they do that, just like we said, you do it all at once, they got nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing for them to have any life, because you just killed them.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go back to that analogy I made with the arrow, because
Yeah.
it's sticking with me
Come
right
on,
now.
say it.
But it's like, it's fighting one giant at a time.
Mhm.
It's the Lord reveals those things as you come, and it's in those processes. So I'm gonna use, like I said, the analogy of like a full season of a superhero show. And you notice as they go through these seasons, season 1, it's learning how to lead, learning how to be part of a team, learning not to be on your own.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward all the way to season 7, and it's like he's then refining the way that he leads so that it empowers other people.
Yeah.
But it's like if you would have tried to use season 7 blueprint and teach him how to refine all the leadership skills without him not even wanting people to be alongside of him, it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
And there's a process to the uncovering.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, you have to have time for things to grow so that you can correctly decipher.
Yeah.
This is good, this is bad.
That's right.
And it's like, because they grow up together, and it's like, keep the good, throw away the bad.
That's right.
It's like, okay, so you've been leading. This part is good. Don't throw that away.
Yeah.
You do well here. But there's a couple things that kind of need to be tweaked. There's, some things that need, some old habits that need to die.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be removed.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that takes time to do.
That's right.
And I think that's one of the things that we have to just sort of learn to be patient with the Lord.
Patient. Yep.
It's like he's
Exactly.
patient with us. We have to be patient with him, because there's a time and a season for everything. There's a time he's going to uncover the thing.
Yeah.
And you just have to be patient and walk. And the thing I heard, there's this minister I listen to. I don't know much about him, so if y'all know something about him that I don't, let me know. But his name's Preston Morrison, and from what I have heard about him, or from what I have heard from him, I like the way he ministers.
Okay.
But he was like, he had said, if your hand is in the Lord's, there's no way you can be early or late. It's like you'll be right on time to everything, because the Lord's always on time.
That's right.
So as long as your hand is in his, relax.
That's
You're
it.
good. When the thing comes, he'll show it to you. He'll reveal it to you. Your hand is in his. He'll guide you through it.
That's right.
So the focus of it, have your hand in his. And I think, and I'm going to finally
Transition.
turn all this back to,
Come on.
being in a pit. It's like, in the pit, just have your hand in his.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that sustains.
Yeah.
Above all else, like, yes, it's good to have all the tools. It's good to keep the ground tilled.
Mm-hmm.
But you can till all the ground you want. If you're not connected to the water, if you're not connected to the source, it'll never grow.
That's right.
So the point of it is, in the middle of these seasons, stay connected.
Yeah.
Stay connected to the source, because he is the one that sustains you.
That's right.
It's his word that sustains you. It's his presence that sustains you. And without it, you will die.
Yeah. So with that, there was a thing when you just said it, I think I can tie it into there. This morning when I was reading Joseph, the first pit he was thrown in by his brothers, it specifically said there's no water in it. Like it said he was thrown into this pit and there's no water. So in the beginning, it's this the first, sometimes we can get thrown into a pit because maybe he wasn't supposed to reveal those dreams as early as he did. He came very, he wasn't supposed to share it with his brothers because again, his brothers took offense to it. They're like, "What are you?"
Well, because they were envious, they were
exactly.
jealous, and all this kind of stuff.
And so he shared that
what you share your dreams with.
Yeah, and so he got put into that pit, but the pit had no water because Joseph did it not in the right timing. He wasn't necessarily holding the hand in there, so he got thrown in there, and there was no water because he wasn't connected.
Wow.
He got thrown in there, and then he got pulled up, but the prison, there was water. He was taken care of well by Pharaoh's elect, like he was in the king's prison, and he had favor with the whoever over, I don't know what centurion, I don't know what the proper word, the man who was over the prison. He got favor with him, and he took very well care of him. He was provided water because faith.
Yeah.
He had faith there because time allowed slavery and all this, being put into that position. He allowed him to then have water in that pit.
Wow.
So the pits that we dig ourselves ain't got water because we dug it. But the wells that, the pits that are more of the well that the Father may, or it's a pit that he's already prepared that we get put in, that's already been there, that the devil thinks, the enemy thinks he's put us in a pit, but it was a well that was dug in preparation to preserve us.
Come on.
And allow us to be sustained and grow and be in this refining pit of things. But there's also there's things that got to be removed, but there's also things that have to be set in stone. And I've shared this with you in the past too about earthen vessels. You have metals to remove impurities. But when you put an earthen vessel, pottery, into a fire, it's to set in stone. It's to place and firm and establish what's on there. And so depending on the season, depending on the material, the substance, whether it's the metal, whatever we can equate, this season that needs to be removing versus the earthen vessel that needs to be established and firmed and set. It has to be, kiln dried to be established, to be able to fit to be used. Because if it's not fit to be used. And we're the vessels that have to be fit. But before we can get, and sometimes, that pit, maybe he did put us there because it's the kiln. Because he's like, you're ready. But we got to set it in place before an imperfection can happen and get locked in there. So these jewels placed around, say it's someone's dressing this pottery, and they place these jewels in there. And someone tries to put a false jewel, something that's not, and wants to put it in the kiln. He's like, oh, no, wait. Don't get in the kiln yet. We still got to do some stuff outside the pit, and then get put in the pit for the establishing of things.
Yeah, and I think that's why your perspective, what you like we were saying, like what kind of attitude are you going to have when you go to perspective is going to determine a lot, because it's like if you walk in with a horrible attitude, if you walk in, why am I here? All this kind of stuff, instead of like saying, all right, God, I'm here. I'm going to allow you to do your work. Yeah. And it's like, I think perspective can alter a lot of those kind of outcomes and really 100%. Determine how long you're in there. Yeah.
And that's the shift that recently for me personally, in these 3 years of the thing that I've equated my pit season is that this past 2.5, maybe 3 months was the mindset shift to, okay, maybe there's something that I need to change. Maybe there is something that I'm still not seeing that needs to have a slight shift. And also it's a part of it too is just surrendering and saying okay and stop running from it. The different things of numerous people trying to say that, you need to be, you're going to be a leader, you're going to be, this, they want to say, be a preacher. No, 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 don't say that on me, But yet the Lord himself, even this past, all these years, these certain scriptures that he's given me that I can't read without just breaking down and blubbering when it's about him anointing somebody to, be a priest. So,
Yeah.
1 Samuel 2:30, is a big one that just is like, I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want to step up into a, again, like Joseph, in the negative sense, Joseph was like, oh, I'm going to be this. I'm going to be king. I'm going to be this set above anointed person.
Right. Yeah.
If the Lord's telling me I'm going to be in a position of authority, I did the opposite.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to run from that. I did Jonah.
Yeah, you're Jonah. Yeah.
You have Joseph and Jonah putting themselves in the pit, we don't get a later story of Jonah, but he's still at the very end of it, is like, still upset that there's, but Joseph at least comes around. But
Wow.
Joseph was being zealous, overzealous before it was time, and Jonah running from it, saying, I don't want that.
Wow.
And so I was, been in the season of more like Jonah, running from it. I don't want that authority. I don't want that. I'm just chill. I'm just going to float. I'm just going to do my thing. And even in church, 8 years, and I'm just going to keep playing drums. Don't give me any authority, But then the Lord starts telling people to, without me having anything to do with it, telling people, hey, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. And then other ministries, no, you're doing this. And I'm like, you don't want me to do that. No, you're doing it. So get ready.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and
it's like, okay, finally shifting. And then it's like, the Lord's like, finally, all of a sudden I see, whether it's, the hand was there, or the hands have been there, but maybe I'm still just like, I don't want that hand. No. I don't want that hand, but he's like, just whenever you're ready, my hand's right here to pull you out of the pit.
Wow. It's so cool you say that, because I'm like, I relate to the Jonah story.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, I'd been told since I was 6 years old, I was going to be in ministry, I was going to be a pastor, and it's like, you can find somebody else. I don't want to do it. And I ran for 10 years, 16 years old at camp. I finally was like, all right, God, I'll stop running. Yeah. And it was like, but the other thing that stuck out to me, one of the things you were saying is like, going into the fire, there's the different substances, and it's like, I remember like before I came here to Fellowship Church, and some of the pits I remember, and I'm like, those were molding pits. Those were, because it was
the molds.
Yeah, because it's like, those are what shaped me to be able to minister.
Yeah.
And now the pit that I'm in, it's like, this is a refining one.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff getting pulled out. I'm like, that's nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa. But I'm like, and so it's cool you say that, because I'm like, now I can see the difference.
Yeah.
And it's like, and applying the word to your life, like, it's one of the most, like, I'm trying to think how to say it. Like, how do I say this? There are times that like the Lord has revealed stuff to me, or that like I've learned things, and it's like without being in the Lord, it's almost like I'm seeing the thing without hope.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm not exactly sure how to communicate this, so I'm trying to just figure it out. But it's like I'm seeing the thing. It's like like for instance, right now, I didn't think I was going to share this, but I guess I'm going to. I'm going through the step study with Celebrate Recovery.
Okay.
And it's like this process of healing and, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, and I was sharing this with someone, I was like, I feel like, because I've been kind of on the journey of it for a few months where the Lord's kind of been uncovering stuff, and it's like, it's been more discouraging than anything.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I've got this wrong, I've got that wrong, I have this. And it's like in those, thorns sort of come up and they choke out and
Yeah.
they provide doubt. And, and it's like, and I feel like a broken mess. But then it's like I'm seeing now a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm seeing hope, and it's like now now I see that there's healing available. It was already there. It was always
It's
there.
always there.
But it's like now I see that there's healing available, and I see, it's like I don't understand everything along this road, but I'm like I can see the spot I'm getting to, which is healing, and it's like, and then I'm now encouraged to walk this road, and it's like now. Someone said that, you feel it's like, you tell God, I've never been so broken. And God responds with, you've never been so whole, so completed. Because it's like, it's in this place that like, God, I'm broken. And I finally realized how much I need him.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's the thing. It's like that, like not having an understanding of how bad you need the Lord. It's a scary, scary spot to be in.
Yeah.
And I was there for a small amount of time where it just was like, I knew I needed the Lord, but I didn't know how bad I needed the Lord.
Right.
And so I saw all of the areas that I'm just hurt and broken. And then what's even in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, it talks about the Lord shining through us as crackpots. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and that's the thing about it. We're supposed to be brokenly whole.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be broken because it's in those areas of brokenness that his light shines through, and when it shines through, it heals.
Yeah.
And there's I'm going on so many different tangents,
but
there was a time during youth camp, and Josh Surratt was ministering, and he had us all go out and lay in the field, and he played this song called Gold. I believe it's from Leland, and one of the lines is that he's healing all of our scars with gold.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that like when pottery is broken and you restore it with gold and it makes it something beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like, and in the same way, it's like we're meant to be brokenly whole and allow the gold of God, the light of God to shine through us and heal those areas to where, because then it's acknowledging I used to be broken there.
Yeah.
There was a wound there, but now his light is shining through it. So it's still acknowledging because it's part of my testimony.
That's right.
It's like I have a wound of losing my brother. I have a wound of XYZ.
Yeah.
And the Lord is, with his light shining through, is healing it.
Yeah.
So it can be a testimony and a beacon of hope to other people when the light shines through.
Yeah. Yeah. So testimony is the word. It's Ayin Dal. It's Ed. Yeah. So it's the root of Moedim, like the feast days. Okay. But it's Ed Ayin Dalet. And it's literally a picture of, it's this like a yield sign. It's a sign, so you got this triangle with this eye in the middle, it's this, and the eye is to understand, like comprehension.
Okay.
And so you have the sign of, it says a decision. So you have decision to understand. And so you have this place of understanding decisions, is this testimony of, you had a sign, it's a marker of you choosing a decision. And so it's like this again, when you're going somewhere, you have signs that tell you this is where you need to go, this is this. So when you go to the church, you have a sign out front that says this testifies that this place is a place of worship. This is a church.
Wow. Okay.
So our testimonies are our signs, our yard signs even, say Biden, Harris, Trump 2024, those signs says this house believes XYZ.
Yeah.
Our testimony are our yard signs.
Wow.
And so what is our yard sign saying? And that's, those are those things. That's our yard sign, and those are the jewels on the vessel, so because that's what Ed is as well. Edi, so you add a yod in there, and it's literally jewels. Wow. So that's what, it kind of ties in. Our testimony is the jewels of our faith. It's the precious things that are visible to everyone else. It's a sign for everyone else. And that's why he says the feasts are a sign, and all these things. It's because those are the jewels of his covenant. They represent him. They're the treasures of your faith.
And they're assigned to other people. They're even assigned to us.
Yes, it's to remind us.
That's
They're
exactly where I
reminders.
was going. It's about remembering,
Yep.
and because it's in those pits that remembrance is important.
Yeah.
It's in those times. I was listening to a message from Jackie Hill Perry at the Passion Conference. I think I talked to you about it.
Yeah, a little bit.
But and the title of her message was "In Defense of Hope," and one of the things she said was so important. And I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm not going to try to preach her message for her because she killed it.
Yeah.
And so, I recommended all my youth do this. I recommend all of y'all go listen to that, "In Defense of Hope" by Jackie Hill Perry. It was amazing. But one of the things she mentioned was the importance of remembrance in those seasons and remembering the faithfulness of the Lord, because it's remembering that produces hope inside of you.
100%.
It's like it's that going back and remembering how God showed up for other people, remembering how God showed up for you, and it produces hope again.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
There's no other way to describe it. It's just
it.
this encouraging thing that, like, my situation hasn't changed yet, but I've seen God change a situation before.
Yeah.
I have hope that he's going to do it again because he's a man of his word and he is who he says he is.
That's right.
And it's that thing that produces hope again inside of me that's like, I can keep going.
Yeah.
Not because of anything that I'm doing or not because of anything that I am, but because I have him.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going. Remembering
right.
his faithfulness and remembering that he always, every single time he shows up.
That's right. Yeah. And that's again, the fact that you say that's been our season, because again, a year ago is when the word, Zakar was, really being pushed at our assembly, at the church.
Yeah.
And 2 years before that, though, is when the Lord gave me that word to do a word study on. It was the very last thing I put in my journal because I was going to the pit. Like, that was the last thing I entered in my study journal. And it was him saying, remember, come back to this. Remember. And it was this season. You have to remember. That's the key. Because that's what Zakar means. The key is placed in the hand of the righteous. Zion Kafresh. The key in the open hand of the righteous.
Yeah.
And he gives access. He gives you the what you need to grab that, and if you want to say it, the key is the tool. It's the tool to plant that seed of faith. It's the shovel to dig up, put that seed, imunah, put that faith in the ground, let it mature, and then break forth, perhaps break out, give you the power to come up out of the pit.
Yeah.
And so it's the key, though. The key is remembering, and then take charge and act. Take active faith.
Yeah.
And steward that faith.
Absolutely.
So that you can take hold of it and come out, break forth, come out victoriously, waving that banner of that faith that what's been produced.
Yeah.
And so she's right on it. I mean, the right season. I mean, it's key is that it's remember Zakar,
Yeah.
And it's not just that we remember, it's that he remembers. It's not just that it's not just, everyone, we need to remember, we remember. Well, it's also that he remembers.
Yeah.
That's the most important part, that he said, I remember.
Yeah. He remembers his covenant with us. He remembers the promises that he gave us.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's definitely, it's that, because that's what gives us the power to have victory and come up out of the pit. Is remembering.
Gosh, man.
Yeah. That's good. And
I said this when we started. I was like, I believe that this podcast is going to help other people, but it's also going to minister to us.
Oh yeah,
and it's
because
like,
we gotta tell ourselves it, because that's the biggest thing, and
this is us remembering.
Yeah, this is the way.
This is us looking.
This
back.
is us inscribing it on the walls of the pit. Counting down. So like when you're in, a lot of times they put in prison, you're sitting there counting down the days, inscribing on the walls.
Yeah.
And there's times when he says, too, like what he did. He said, I inscribed you in the palm of my hands. I'll never forget that. I got you right here. I'm going to remember. Well, it's just like what Joseph had to do in that prison was, that seed, he probably inscribed his dream. It's his dream inscribed there to never forget it while he's in that pit.
All right, so I'm gonna give you a perspective.
Okay.
This is listen, y'all can come at me all you want. This is so I've been kind of like on this thought process with tattoos and stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like tattoos are, in my opinion. Listen, you can hate me all you want, say I'm wrong, I don't care. In my belief, I think tattoos are the same way because these are the walls to our temple. In the same way that you inscribe things on the walls, he inscribed you in the palm of his hand. And you inscribe things, on the. It's in the same way. You're inscribing and like, because this is like my thought process with tattoos. It's like, and I've told people this is like when I get a tattoo, like I want it to be something that has marked me in my faith, because in those seasons of being in the pit, I'm looking down. It's reminding me of his faithfulness. It's reminding me of that season where he showed up. And it's like, in the same way, tattoos, I believe, are a way of inscribing God's word on your walls to remind you. And it's like, because it says in scripture, keep the word of God in your heart. And it's like, listen, there's some times that like you need an external reminder.
Yep.
And it's like, and in my opinion, I'm like, I think that's one of the things tattoos can be. It's like they're a source of remembrance and a way to remind you, and that's one of the reasons. Like,
no, that's what I like. It fits the description of the word remember. Inscribing, it's literally to prick.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it fits that. I won't get into. I have one, mostly just because of the you don't know, me personally, don't know what long term it does. As far as what they're putting in us. As far as that, what the ink actually does to our bodies.
That's true.
Now,
I haven't really.
Now, because it fits that, and it ties into as well. It's like I believe too, though. That's why he gave him the tassels. In the tzitzits. In Scripture, it says on the four corners of your garment. He says place the braid, the betwixt braid with the blue and the to remember.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's another form of it. And so like when we do it, but that's not to say again, hey. Go, do what you know, what you feel led. It's a personal thing. You do it.
You work out your own salvation.
Exactly.
Own salvation through fear and trembling.
And I just, where I'm like, I don't know if Daniel.
Right.
Daniel.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's one of the things I practiced was like
cost of
they're
tattoo.
expensive. That's the reason I ain't got one yet.
What it's doing, what is,
what it does to your body.
Who knows the long-term effects of it? Again, it could be a seed of something that comes up way down the line, slow growth, but it doesn't affect necessarily your actions of your walk, but it could possibly affect your health, and how long you can walk,
Absolutely.
Especially if you're, again, no judgment, but especially if you got blacked out, I've seen a lot of people that's just totally like just not designs, just black out their whole. But I'm like, golly, why?
Yeah.
But if they're remembering something, as long as it's it's to a good thing and not to them killing somebody, like the gangs do, is to remember, teardrops, so they remember how many people they killed. It's what you're remembering. I mean, again, it's the perspective. What are you doing it for?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's what you need to focus on. What are you doing
exactly?
It for?
That's the thing I always focus on with tattoos. And my mom has been pretty adamant on me. And it's like, she and I really appreciate her concern, because she's like, I want to make sure you're doing it with the right heart. Like I want to make sure that your heart is in the right posture and not in any ill motive when you do this. Which like I said, I appreciate a lot, because it's like, the motive behind it will kind of determine what it does.
What it does. Exactly. Because if it's in the right heart, even if it's not in the right terms, as far as like, even if it's, because you look back in Chronicles, it talks about them wanting to keep Passover, but they had missed it. It was in the second month, and they were dead body. They were not fit to take it according to the letter.
Right.
But their heart was to do it, and the Lord said,
"So do it."
So do it. Your heart's right, and and Hezekiah, prayed and interceded, and they kept the Passover in the second month, on the 14th day of the second month, and it's because it was in their hearts.
Yeah, and it's cool you bring that up, because it's like it's even if we get all the methods wrong, he'll still show up for authentic pursuit.
That's it. And not to say that you continue doing things
Yes.
uneducated,
Yeah, and
unlearned,
out of order. And
but
true, that's a word.
but you
Speak that.
you can.
And he can still show up.
He can still show up if you don't do it by the book, but that doesn't
Right.
mean you stay outside of the book.
Right.
Outside of the terms.
That's a good word.
And
That's
so
good.
it's just like when you get a speeding ticket. You can that cop can sit there and say, "I'll give you a warning." Now, do you continue speeding?
No.
Next time he's going to say, "Hey,
I gave you a
know,
warning.
you know now. I reminded you.
Yeah.
So now now it's your turn to steward
The information.
and that you've been given, and how you do it is how that's what we're called to do. We're called to
Absolutely.
steward the things, and we don't stay in the ditches. We don't stay outside. We want to always grow and expand, which is Breaker as well. It's expanding your territories. It's growing.
Yeah.
It says enlarge your tent, enlarge the borders of your tent.
Yeah.
It says because it's not going to be like the first one, the first tabernacle. It's
Yeah.
new. It's bigger. It's better. Expand your territory.
Yeah.
And sing, O barren. You who were desolate, you're no longer. It seems like I've forsaken you, but I have not forsaken you. And for I am your husband. Your maker. And so you will burst forth from the sides, and you will. That's
Yeah.
Isaiah 54 is another. That's where Breaker's used in that. That's where it says
okay.
you will go forth. You will break forth on the sides, and your seed. Again, you're going to have your inheritance going to expand. So basically, he's telling Jerusalem, enlarge your borders because you're about to be filled. You're about to grow in numbers, and it's. It seemed like you were forsaken for a time. It seemed like you were in a pit for a season. But get ready, because you're coming up, and it's going to be addition, which is what Joseph name means, addition. He adds.
Wow.
He adds unto.
That is cool.
So
Yeah.
he's in the season of when you remember. He adds, multiplies, and does all the math, the kingdom math,
Yeah.
which is multiplication.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
And even we'll kind of just touch on this topic about about dreams and destiny. It's like, and I think even oftentimes it is in pits that those can and oftentimes are stewarded.
Yeah.
I think it's in those places of solitude where things are stripped down to the bare bones, and it's in those places that the Lord will kind of, because it's in those pits that I've often found that you're the closest with the Lord, because it's like, God, I need you to sustain me in this season. And sadly enough, it's like that's really the time that we really depend on the Lord's strength, when it's like you should always depend on the Lord's strength, but it's those times that it's like you're really keen and aware, like, God, I need your strength.
Yeah.
And because you're in so close of communion and so close to his heart, it's in those seasons that he will share his heart for you.
Yeah.
And the dreams and the destiny he's placed over you.
Right.
And so it's in those pits that sort of your destiny can come out of.
Yeah.
Kind of like a testimony.
Yeah.
But it's in those places that he gives you the blueprint, and he gives you vision, and
exactly. And it's time for you to tweak it before you go and actually try to do it. Because it's a testing ground. Basically, it's a proving ground. It's to prove, and it's just like when he brought Israel out of Egypt. He said, I brought you into the wilderness to test you and prove you and humble you to see if you would walk in my ways.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's seasons too where, we unaware may be prideful. Yeah. And he says, I'm going to take you into the wilderness. Maybe not be a pit, but it's through a season of, you're going to wander a little bit.
Yeah.
Without
same concept.
Yeah, same concept. And it's to prove you and test you to see whether you still will continue in my ways.
Yeah.
And
it's so cool you say that. And I'm going to share a little bit that this kind of goes into me even being here. I remember like when I went to ORU and I went for a semester, and I normally don't really like talking about this a lot just because it's a testimony, and I need to learn to be okay with it. But
yeah.
I went to ORU, and so before my first semester, I had everything fully funded. Like, ORU is very expensive. At the time that I went, it was $42,000 per year. So if I would have stayed all 4 years, I'd have paid $170,000 in tuition.
Yeah.
Really expensive. Well, as of like 2 weeks before I moved into ORU, I got the last scholarship in and was like, you're gonna be fully funded to the
Wow.
T, to the penny. Give or take, like less than $100.
Yeah.
And so, I go to ORU and stuff, and then spend my first semester there. Well, one of my big scholarships outside of ORU, because I got a lot of money from ORU,
Okay.
but there were outside scholarships that I got as well, and one of them ended up getting revoked. Not like anything I did wrong or
Right.
bad. It was they required me to work so many hours my senior year, and
Gotcha.
I didn't,
You
and I
did.
didn't know.
Gotcha.
Or I didn't know it was my own fault. I didn't read the description well
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Anyways, so that whole thing happens, and so scholarship ends up getting revoked, and it's like I'm gonna have to go home because this was a big it was $12,000 a year, so I would have had a $12,000 gap per year to cover, and it was
Yeah.
like there was no help outside of that,
Yeah.
and so
$1,000 a month.
I have to go home, and then I spend like my first year back home in Liberty, and I'm just like, I'm not going back to college, at least not right now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of mad in all reality. I didn't really know it at the time. I was kind of just blind to it. I was like, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, all these things. I just need a break. So I just took a year, just started working, stayed at the church a lot,
Yeah.
and just didn't really live haphazardly, but it was just kind of like, this is my gap year just to sort of breathe
Yeah.
and figure some stuff out.
Yeah.
Throughout the time, I'm asking the Lord, God, why? Why would you send me there just to have me come back home? Why?
Mhm.
Why? And, I look back on that as like, maybe that was my own doing. Maybe it was because I didn't read the description well enough
Yeah.
and I didn't work enough and, didn't have an answer that whole year. I ended up going to camp. And this is the Lamb's Reward in 22. This is right before I came here. This is right before Pastor reached out. And it was Wednesday morning, and I'll always remember that Wednesday. That was amazing. The night and the day and the morning and the night service. What? My brain died. The morning and the night service, but the morning service, I'm following one of the counselors around, really big mentor of mine, JT Harris. So JT, if you're listening to this, shout out to you. I love you, man.
JT, are you with me? Yeah, son. God,
But really big mentor in my life. Anyways, he ministers. He kind of has me follow him around in some altar ministry, help administrate some things and stuff, and then he prays over me. And and one of the things he said is like, the same thing that the Lord gave me, I impart into you. And I didn't really know what that means. And honestly, to this day, I kind of still don't understand the full extent of it.
Yeah.
It stuck with me. And I know there are some things that were kind of passed over. But anyways, the point being, I'm like laid out in the middle of the altar for hours. Like, service is over. They all go to lunch. I'm on the floor plastered, not even there. And so they're all, they go eat and they come back. I'm still plastered on the floor. At this point, I'm kind of like conscious though.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have like an out of body experience, but I was like unconscious kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And the Lord kind of took me through like a few visions and stuff. And in that probably 2-hour span, one of the things he said was that, and like I said, don't know all the details, don't know if like part of me leaving was my own doing,
Right.
But whatever. One of the things the Lord told me, and he said, because there was a lot that went on before then, a lot of people disagreed with my decision to go there, and the reason why, let me preface this, is going to Oklahoma, going anywhere out of state, I was sacrificing my first year of tuition free inside the state of Texas because I graduated valedictorian, and so anyone that graduates anyone who graduates as a valedictorian in the state of Texas has their first year of tuition completely free.
Oh wow!
So it could have went UT, could have went A&M, and keep in mind, I had enough scholarships. Basically, more or less, I would have been paid to go to A&M, UT, fill in the blank, whatever college I wanted to in the state of Texas. But I really felt the Lord calling me to ORU. So to go to ORU, like I said, my counselor didn't really agree with it. My parents didn't really agree with it. all this kind of stuff. And, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I understand you don't agree. And I want to honor that. But at the same time, I know I really feel this is what the Lord's calling me to do. And I have to, be able to hear and obey his voice for myself. And so, with the Lord's help, really walk through that season in honor. It was hard. It was a learning curve, but the Lord's grace was definitely on it. Definitely grew my relationship with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So appreciative for that season.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to the point. So all of this happens. There's been a lot of, and so I've been asking the question, Lord, why would you send me through all this trouble? Why go through all the trouble? Not even sure if I would even go to ORU until 2 weeks before. All the things. And it gets down Wednesday morning. I'm laid in the altar, and the Lord was like, I needed to know that I could trust you to hear my voice when it's only your life on the line, so that when the eternity of other people's souls hang in the balance, I know that I can trust you to hear my voice and obey it. And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was a strong word, but it was like, and I understood the weight of that season then. It was like it was a testing. Like you were saying, it's like, I need to know that I can trust you.
Yeah.
Will you be trusted with little so that I can then trust you with more?
Yeah.
The parable of the talents. And it's like, and that was a proving season. That was a molding season.
Right.
That kind of molded me into obeying the voice of the Lord, hearing the voice of the Lord, and then obeying the voice of the Lord. And it's cool because the year after that, the theme of camp was "Hear My Voice." Super cool. Anyways,
oh heck yeah,
yeah, super cool. But
love
anyway,
it when that happens.
22 was a Lamb's Reward, like I said. So that happens. Legit, a month and a half later, I end up coming to Fellowship Church.
Wow.
He's like, I needed to know that I could trust you to hear my voice when it was only your destiny in the balance, so that when eternity was at stake for people, I knew I could trust you to obey my voice, to hear and obey my voice. And then a month later, ended up, coming to Woodville, and it was like,
that's it.
Wow.
You gotta wander the wilderness for a minute, and not that wander. He led you through there, because you weren't disobedient, you weren't stiff-necked, you obeyed, and so it was a quick run.
Yeah, it was.
You had a quick run through the wilderness. He took you straight there because you obeyed.
Yeah.
And so doing that, you humble yourself quickly. It was a thing like that. And I mean, I same kind of thing of quitting my job when I was working in Houston, and going from being a planner there in the chemical plants, and I was brought in $10 an hour under what planners make, just because of my experience in the field wasn't as much as everyone else, because the main priority of the job is running execution, which is out there making sure all the work's getting done, getting having experience with all the different types of tasks that we're planning, rather than just being the planner, which is 90% of the job is the planning, but that 10% is where it comes in, execution. That's the whole thing. And so even though 90% of the job is planning and on the computer, 10% is where most of the weight is measured on what they were paying people. And I didn't have the experience in there, but I had AutoCAD and piping design and things like that in my schooling that I had a degree in and stuff. And so anyway, I get in there and which it's it's good money, $37 an hour, and doing that for almost 3 years, and comes to a point in that season was a lot of when I was studying and all that, because I had the freedom to be able to study things while I was working on computer, being there in the computer, being able to do it, I was just a lot of digging and a lot of just learning and growing, and my, not just the normal walk into church and on Sundays and then the rest of the week not open up the book once and understand and comprehend. That season, was those 3 years there was, I know what it says, and I want, I want to know why I believe what I believe, and I
Right.
want to know what it says and why it says it, and be able to say, this is what it says, because I was asked at there and said, well, this is that what it says, and I said, I don't know, and it was like, at that point, it was like, I need to know, because it wasn't that whether it says word for word,
Right.
is that concept there?
Yeah.
Was this concept?
Let me
Yeah,
ask
go
you
ahead.
real quick. How old were you in this season?
Ooh, that season was, so it's been 6 years ago, going on 7 years ago. So I'm about to turn 33. So
You were about
I was
26.
26, 27 ish, somewhere in that timeline. Uh, so yeah, 26, 27 ish, something like that. So at that point, I really just uh was doing that struck it and said, I can't do that. I can't be the guy they call, oh yes, the Christian guy, and don't cuss around him and everything. And, he's the Bible guy, and then when something gets brought up and says, well, does the Bible say that? Hey, Daniel, does the Bible say that? I don't know, because it was a concept. It wasn't necessarily a direct, Bible thing, but it was enough to relate it to there and
Right.
for me to be able to respond because I should know, like,
Yeah.
concepts, but I didn't have a response. And they're like, let's read, and then at that point it was like, well, no, I can't be put in a situation like that. I gotta be able to, if I say that, I'm a believer and I, stand on these concepts and
Yeah.
precepts, that's true. I didn't even know what it says.
Absolutely.
And so that started that season of 3 years of just, just anything. It's just constant study every day, listening podcast, just a bunch of things, just diving in, reading it, understanding, practicing, doing. And then in that season, just really hearing the Lord and having him reveal a bunch of things and be able to see, how he speaks to me and how I can interpret different things, like with me, my wife, and, my wife has, dreams a lot of times in that season was very vivid dreams. And the way that I, it's funny now that I'm talking about it and I don't even realize it. I interpreted her dreams then. I didn't interpret them by just like talking about it. It was the Lord. The dreams that she had were there were significant things in Scripture, and I'd go and I'd find those things in Scripture. Like owls, dragons was one specific one that I interpreted, and other times fire in a wall. A wall was on fire, and different things of like certain structures. There's key things in her dreams that led to scriptures that was directly connected to a transition in our life that was happening, and it was directly connected to that in that scripture, and that was the it lined right up with the interpretation of her dream that he gave me. It wasn't it was through the word though.
Yeah.
But it was interpreting dreams. And now that we're talking about Joseph, I'm just having this thing of,
Wow.
he was doing it then. At the time though, he was calling us, because it wasn't about the money. We always, was taken care of. Like I never wanted to be this, trying to just, do the American dream and work and, build a house and have all this stuff and just keep working, at the time I was wanting to, I started building drums, I was doing my entrepreneurial stuff, started building drums and looking at all different types of, crafting, building and creating. And so, he was, doing all these things, and we were learning just, wanting to be able to do homesteading and stuff and kind of, looking, but not, he wasn't telling us to settle anywhere. It's like, there was no call to, you need to find your home to build a house and settle. He said, no, don't, that's not what you're, doing, but, just doing this stuff and studying. And then he says, quit your job, yeah, 3 years. And it's like moved, because I was in Houston, Miranda was living here, and we were driving back and forth every weekend. And I was doing drums at a church in Houston, and then we're just started going to Fellowship Church at the time, and trying to figure out whether we're gonna bloom where we're planted, or just keep driving back and forth and all this stuff, because we were in Houston, I'm always there and working all these hours and stuff. And then it just got to the point where, like, no, like, leave, And I'm like, okay. I just was like, okay, I'll quit. And then we were talking about it. It's like, well, what if they give me, because all this time, I'm $10, but yeah, I'm teaching everybody how to do their job on the computer, running AutoCAD, doing isometrics and stuff. I'm teaching the operators at the plant. They're plant operators, and I'm teaching them how to run AutoCAD, run their program, and do certain things that help them do their job better. But I'm the guy that's getting paid $10 less an hour on the planning group, doing that. But it didn't matter. It wasn't a big deal to me. I was happy to be there. It was a great job, and the calling to come out was, well, what if they offer me, the raise? Well, it's not about the money. I don't care. Me and my wife talking. Well, the week I go to quit, they call both me and my father-in-law in there actually and tell us, we're gonna get y'all's raises, and we're gonna get you your $10 an hour raise. We're gonna get 5 now, and then you'll do 5 next year. And then I'm like, really, like what? And
Yeah, that was a.
And I was like, okay. And then so I didn't say anything then. And then it's funny because I was telling Pastor Chris this, and I didn't remember doing it, but he said, yeah, you FaceTimed me during that time, and we talked about it and all this. And he's like, and then you never called me back and told me that you quit. But it was funny the other day we were talking about it. But we anyway, that happened, and I called Miranda that night, and I was like, should we be quitting? Like, that's $10 an hour, that's good money. And then when you're talking, it's like, well, no, that's, again, let your days be yay and your nays be nay. Like it was, it wasn't about the money. So we can't let money be the thing that's going to determine, deter us. And so, so I quit, essentially I quit and I left. And then, and it was this thing of coming out, and I'm like, okay, dream of drum business, doing, music, doing, ministry, doing these things was the dream he gave me to quit and pursue. So I start doing that in 1 year of just not working, just doing my odds and ends, and we were taking care of a ministry, taking care of the property of a ministry. And then some things shifted in that to where we weren't going to be there that following year. And so it just kind of, started to, some things shifting. But in that time, we didn't lack anything. We had provision. I was doing odd and end jobs and had no worries for any money, food, nothing. Everything was taken care of. But it was this, beginnings to let the start to, okay, I'm going to start pursuing, my drum business and getting it established and doing it full time and getting, CNC, business going and other things. And then all of a sudden, it transitions as well as, my father-in-law didn't quit at that time. And,
right.
But, he quit and we take on a business. And, so we kind of go into a business, and at that transition, it was like, I'm going to set this stuff aside and then go into a business. And in that business, it's not necessarily those dreams being pursued.
Right.
And it was never intended to be a long-term thing either, so going into it, it's always intended to be a short-term endeavor. But it seemed to be longer, and during it, it felt like a pit, but it's that season that to my wilderness, essentially, just like you were saying, you had to, to walk through, of him having to remove things, and maybe I was, a bit more stiff-necked than you, and I was. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. What it is, I was stiff-necked on certain things he wanted me to do, and I just, it wasn't like a rebellious attitude of like, no way, like I'm not listening to you. It's just, not now, not now, and but I want out of this, but I'm not going to do that. But I want out of this.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that though. I want out of this. I'm not going to do that because different people all the time, you get people telling me words and all this stuff, and then, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's easy to do the thing you want to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to do the thing you don't want to do.
And so, like where we're at now, is just fast forward. It's a thing of 3 years, and that's what he always seems to do things every 3 years for us. It's our timing that he does.
He's a God of order.
And so
I'm fascinated with stuff like that.
yeah.
It's really cool.
Oh, he's
I'm
all
like, I know he
about.
doesn't always operate that way, but
Yeah.
when he does, I'm like, that's
Oh
cool.
yeah. And the thing is, he's going to respond to what you align yourself with. If you're aligning yourself with a certain order that he does things, he'll respond in that too.
Yeah.
But if you, it's not that you have to do that for him to respond to you, but when you do,
Yeah.
there's no mistake. There's no mistake that it's not him because it's in his it's in his order.
It's
you know,
in his
it's
it's
his
the how do
it's
I
his
say
voice. You know, essentially.
the way that you like have this like every 3 years or
Yeah.
it's he's a god of order. It's the
Yeah.
same way at the same time every day the sun comes up,
Mm-hmm.
the same time every day the sun goes down, with
Yeah.
of course the rotation
Of
of the earth or
course,
whatever.
yeah.
But it's like he's a god of order and he honors that kind of thing. He
Yeah.
honors structure.
Yeah.
And it has its place. And so I really find it fascinating when it's like when stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's like, the Lord does something big every 3 years and it's like, and because you've noticed it,
Yeah.
it's like now you've attached your faith to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the Lord moves on.
Yeah, he moves on. Yeah, it's not that, you attach your faith on a blind idea, because
Right.
you want it to fit. It's not forcing it to fit. I'm not trying to force a square peg into a triangle hole.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
that
It's just that
I've observed and seen the pattern, and I'm going to align myself with his pattern.
Exactly.
And when you do
Yeah,
that,
that's good.
that's when you hear it. That's when
That's
you
good.
see how he operates in your life. It's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
But just find that rhythm. Find the rhythm of heaven. And
Amen.
and so
Spoken like a true drummer.
yeah, that's a future thing there. Rhythm of heaven. I don't know the last key phrase on there though, but that's gonna be something with the drums. Some drum ministry or something. It's gonna be Rhythm of Heaven School of, or I don't want to say school, but Rhythm of Heaven music ministry or something like that.
Heck yeah.
That way it's not just drums, it's other things as well, and I can get involved with others. But yeah, so long story short, he's about to move me. He's about to move us into something, and
Awesome, man.
this pit that I've said, and equated a lot of things to with this business was a preservation. It
Yeah.
wasn't a punishment. It's not a thing that he is entrapping me with, ensnaring me, tricking me. It was for my preservation.
Yeah.
It was to preserve me for such a time as this, that he's awaiting and preserving for his order, his sequence that he has, the rhythm that he has for our life, the seasons of growth, and trees. Like, it's just like when he says, when he gives the laws about, the trees that you plant when you come into the land, it says, certain fruit trees are his for 3 years.
Mm.
And then the fourth you can start taking from it. There's certain times when he says, that's a tithe. The first
Right.
3 years of that fruit is mine. Don't take from it.
Mm.
But then after those 3 years are complete, you can start taking from it.
Wow.
And so there's different times of things where he says, these are mine. This is my time of
Yeah.
taking this fruit and see. And it's kind of a thing of, let me see whether this is good fruit or not. He's going to see whether this is producing something, and whether he's going to say, okay, you can take from this tree, or it's not good. Chop it down, plant another one.
Yeah.
And so it's that season to see whether it's good or not, acceptable
Wow.
to be offered
Yeah.
to him.
That's good.
And so,
That's good.
yeah, that's just something he just kind of showed me there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know the other point, but that's probably better than what I was going to say. than what I was trying to close it on, is that the pit, is, I was going to equate it just like the preservation is just like Noah. Noah was placed into a ark, a confinement,
That's
a
cool. I just read that story.
enclosement. You could say a coffin almost. It's this place of concealment, while the earth was being, turbulent. There was turbulence. There was chaos. There was all these waters just eroding everything. But yet in that boat was preservation of life.
Mm.
And he was placed inside there. It wasn't a joyful ride.
Mm-mm.
It
And
was
and he was-
very, very turbulent and very
Oh.
stressful, very much chaotic. Because not only are you dealing with your wife and kids on a boat through a storm, you're dealing with all of the animals that were called good.
Well, here's
all
the
of that.
thing the Lord just kind of pointed out to me. It's really cool. It's like in that boat, there's chaos, confusion, and war going on around you, but like you said, it's preservation.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm reminded of, like, it says, even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death. It doesn't say you're walking through the valley of death.
Death, it's shadow.
Just the shadow of death.
Mhm.
And it's like, and so I'm reminded, it's like in those seasons, it's like there may be chaos around you,
Mhm.
but chaos around you doesn't determine chaos within you.
No.
You can have preservation and you can have peace
Yeah.
in the midst of chaos because that's what he provides.
That's right.
And it's in his shell, under the
Shadow
wings of the
his wings.
Almighty, under
Yeah.
the shadow of his wings, that you find that peace and that comfort in the midst of chaos.
That's right. That's right.
So
Heck
it's
yeah.
even in those seasons, it's like,
Yeah. And so with that is that he gets placed in that boat for preserving. And once the chaos ceases, even chaos has ceased, the waters are at rest. He can't get out.
Yeah.
He has to wait a whole year after the chaos.
yeah,
Then he's got to still wait in there for a year. Sometimes you just gotta wait. It's not time to get off the boat yet. But in that time, he will respond, and when the time's right, he says, "Get off," and then you can get off. So those, I think pretty soon I'm going, we're going to get off the boat and gonna have, have a party.
oh yeah,
Go
Oh,
plant
yeah.
a vineyard. But yeah, so with what you just said too, the what'd you just say? I lost it. It's all right. It's all right. It's all
Lost
good.
it?
Yeah, I lost it. It's gone.
oh, all
It gone. It left
right.
because I forgot what you just said right before
Peace
I
in the midst of chaos.
missed the case. So yeah. So another picture of breaker. And this is what I drew when I taught this at Thrive Camp.
Oh, okay.
You have the guy holding up this deal. It's a picture of Moses parting the Red Sea. Victory, path has gone before you. You have the breaker that's gone before, has made the path. In the midst of chaos, you have this road. Those waters are up. It's chaotic. You have the shadow of
Yeah.
death. If those waters were to come down, you'd die.
Yeah.
Though you walk through that valley of the shadow of death, you will feel no evil. You walk through, you follow that banner, you follow that flag, that banner of salvation leading you through the waters to the other side, entering your land of promise, entering your freedom.
Yeah.
And once you get through there, you're free. And then the death comes upon your enemies.
Yeah. Wow. It's cool you bring that up. I have Psalms 23 written on the wall right there.
Oh, heck yeah.
So I got out of the habit. I need to get back in the habit, but I'd wake up every morning and read it over myself.
Yeah.
Just because everything I was going through was like that's what I needed.
That's right.
I needed something to give me hope, and that was it.
Yeah.
And
That's
you know.
that seed of faith. You got to water it. That's the
Yeah.
water. Water it.
absolutely. But yeah, man, this
It's good. It's good.
is really good.
Hope
Well-
y'all enjoyed it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Daniel, I appreciate you being on. I appreciate
you, man.
everything that you've
Appreciate the
sown
opportunity
into
to
this.
come and share some stuff.
Absolutely.
Here, just to let out some stuff that the Lord's preserved in me in
Oh,
the
yeah.
season of obscurity, and maybe now it's time the season of obscurity to be over and things to
Yeah.
be revealed.
Absolutely.
Let the seeds.
Yeah.
See
Well, I
whether
mean,
they're
if you're
good.
anything like me, verbal processor, this helps a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm like,
Heck
there's a lot of stuff. It's like, listen, y'all getting it fresh off the dome, and
That's it.
y'all are hearing it right as I'm hearing it. I'm like, wow.
That's right. Yeah, and it's like,
And so-
just faithful, hoping that it's comprehensible.
Yeah.
Hopefully it
Yeah, that's the
lands
big thing.
well
It's like,
on the ears, and it's
yeah,
tangible, and it's profitable.
Exactly, because it's like it makes sense for me because as I'm communicating it, the Lord's relating it to things in my life that I don't always share. Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. And so like you said, it's just you believe the Lord. And that's the thing that I like really strongly encourage to people who listen to stuff like this is relate this kind of thing to your own life.
That's right.
Like find the things that we've talked about when we've related it to us.
You have to make it personal.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Because
So
that's what it's all about. It says
yeah.
you. It's not them. It's you. I'm not talking to just the ones that are right here in front of the mountain. I am talking about those that will be in the future too. The covenant wasn't just for those sitting right there. Salvation wasn't for just those sitting there staring at the snake. Salvation wasn't just for those that witnessed Jesus crucified on the cross. Salvation is for anyone that takes hold and remembers the covenant.
Yeah. So salvation is for you.
It's for everyone.
Yeah. So
remember.
Man, like I said, again, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on. Had a lot of fun with this.
I did too, man.
This was awesome.
Heck yeah.
This is encouraging, empowering.
Yeah.
Equipping. So.
This is I pray a blessing over this podcast for you, dude. It's going to be a table that is well dressed with plenty of food. You're going to have multiple buffets to offer everyone. It's not you're not you're not doing finger foods either. This is buffets. This is a buffet. So keep offering and keep the buffet filled.
Yeah.
Because it's getting eaten. It's already empty. You got to fill it again.
Yeah. Wow.
Fill the plate.
Yeah, that confirmed a lot of things for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I received that.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it.
Heck yeah.
For this episode with Daniel Heck.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed. Thank y'all for listening. I hope y'all enjoyed. We will catch y'all in the next episode.